Peace, Chiefs, and Deers. It's Bronzebird with another video. Before I begin, like and subscribe. Thank you. So, I've been watching recently, and I just want to say a big thanks to people who's been watching the videos, keeping up with the hypothesis. My goal is to share out an awareness about what's going on. Not much for an introduction. So today we're going to be talking about my hypothesis and what is it that I believe that's going on in this generation, with the idea of believing that more than not, more so than ever, a lot of millennials, Gen Xers, or more so geared towards millennials and Gen Z children or adults, that is, are not really trying to have children in this period. And what do I feel my hypothesis is that they're trying to replace children with pets, or that pets, not even trying, but pets are replacing children. I don't know how true this is. This is just a theory, but it seems as if more these days you're starting to have a lot more people who want to adopt pets, take in pets to be the child that they have instead of actually producing a child for this nation. Now, I have no positive or negatives between on this in this conversation. This is merely me just making an analysis about what's going on in our world. So in order to understand this, I had a couple of articles that I put together, some that I wanted to understand for myself and to give into the hypothesis whether it's true or false. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to share this screen. We're going to get to the nitty gritty of this article. So right here, in order to, come along with my thesis, I have to attack it at the head. I have to talk about the childbirth first, because it has been reported, and I've heard this numerous times, that there has been fewer births in this generation than previous generations, that people are opting out to not have a child. People would rather not have children in this society for numerous of reasons. A lot of people feel like the society is going into a negative direction, which I always say all the time it is. But you start to understand that there is some factors into this. So let's read this article really quickly, and then we're going to get into some more videos as this day plays on. Shout outs to Fortune. COVID baby boom, not so much. 300,000 fewer births expected in 2021. Shout outs to Marie Solis. The baby boom, some expected to occur after months of romantic partners quarantining at home together, has failed to materialize, according to researchers at the Brookings Institute. Rather, it's quite the opposite. Melissa Kearney and Philip Levine, economic professors at the University of Maryland and Wellesley College, respectively, say they expect 300,000 fewer births in 2021 and what they're calling a COVID baby bust. We're going to get into that in a little bit, y'all, but let's just read this article on. Their finding is based in part on evidence that show a 1% increase in the national unemployment rate corresponds with an equivalent 1% drop in birth rates. In order to account for the fact that there is a public health crisis layered on top of an economic one, Kearney and Levine examined the impact of the 1918 Spanish flu on births, finding that spikes in flu deaths resulted in a decrease in the number of births 9 months later, which makes a lot of sense. These effects can be observed on both the macro and micro level. There is a well-documented cycle to the nation's birth rate. When the labor market is weak, aggregate birth rates decline. When the labor market improves, birth rates improve, which makes a lot of sense. Again, it makes a lot of sense. It's like taking a positive with a positive and negative with a negative. It all makes sense. It corresponds with each other pretty well. Kearney and Levine wrote in a New York Times op-ed on their research. At the individual level, there is also a well-documented link between changes in income and births. When income increases, people often expand their families. When people experience job or income loss, they have fewer children. Goes back to what I was saying earlier, positive and a positive and a negative and a negative. Starts to make a lot of sense to you people. Kearney and Levine made a similar estimate in June, just a few months into the pandemic, writing in a Brookings report that myths about baby booms following snowstorms and blackouts were largely that, myths. This early prediction was also buoyed by findings from the Guttmacher Institute the same month, which details dramatic shifts in the way women were thinking about family planning during the pandemic. The study found that more than 40% of women said they were altering their plans for when to have children or how many children they would have, and more than 1/3 of women said the pandemic had made them decide to delay pregnancy or have fewer children. Just 17% of respondents reported wanting to have children sooner or to have more of them because of the pandemic. Well, have more during the pandemic? We don't even know when the pandemic is ending. A certain amount of common sense dictates that this must be the case. Women have suffered some of the highest rates of unemployment in recent months, and mothers especially have been effectively pushed out of the workforce because of school closures and lapses in childcare. This is only an acute symptom of a much larger problem. Birth rates have been falling in the United States for years now, which I've understood and a lot of people have been saying. The results of a confluence of social, cultural, and economic factors that have made childbearing less desirable for many people. The most obvious among these factors is the lack of government support for parents. The US continues to be the only industrialized country that doesn't have a universal paid family leave policy in place. It also lacks both universal childcare and preschool policies, which can make it more feasible for people to have children. Kearney and Levine say it's possible birth rates will begin to rebound to pre-pandemic numbers since some people are delaying pregnancy, not abandoning the desire to have children altogether. But the longer the pandemic and the social and economic conditions created by it go on, the less that may become true, which could lead to long-term consequences like a shrinking workforce. And that seems like what's going on now. A lot of the workforces, a lot of people is not trying to go back to work. And a lot more people want to work for self or go with companies that don't have to be under the rules of a manager or any higher corporate. I hear a lot of people that might get into things like Uber Eats and, driving Uber or, all these other companies that don't require a manager. You work for yourself. You're just working under their brand and their whole entire corporate structure, but not the corporate structure that's in corporate America, if you understand what I mean. That seems to be what a lot of people is doing these days. That's just my hypothesis. That might be a video for another day. As of now, we stand by our prediction of a COVID baby bust of around 300,000 fewer births, they report. But the longer the pandemic lasts, and the deeper the economic and social anxiety runs, it is feasible that we will see an even larger reduction in birth with an increasing share of them averted permanently. And that feeds into my hypothesis on this. But you'll ask me, like, Bronzebird, why did you go to this first? Why? Right? There is a reason to my madness. This is what you have to understand. I just want to read the first part of this. I'm going to give you more time to check this out. Okay, so I'm going to read the first paragraph and we're going to get into our analysis about this. And I'm going to give you the article in the description so you can read more of this article to see where I'm coming from about the baby bust. But let's check this out. In June of 2020, 3 months after the COVID pandemic began in earnest in the United States, we wrote a report suggesting that the public health crisis and associated recession would result in 300,000 to 500,000 fewer births in 2021. 6 months later, we have been asked several times if we have an updated estimate. We have revisited the issue and stand by our initial predictions of a larger reduction in births. Based on our previous methodology, In a labor market that improved somewhat more quickly than we anticipated, we place more emphasis on the lower range of our original estimate, likely closer to 300,000 fewer births. However, additional factors that we did not incorporate into our model, in particular, ongoing school and daycare closures, might very well mean a larger reduction in birth than that. So this is just an overview of the article. I'm going to show you in the description box where you can read more of this to get an idea of what the baby bust is. Now, before I begin the other videos that's on here, I just want to give you an idea about where I'm coming from with this. My hypothesis is, yes, because of what's going on in society even before the COVID pandemic happened. My thesis is that a lot of people are opting out to have children for other reasons than before the pandemic, such as it could have been about ideas about how the economy is, because that's usually how it is. They usually talk about the economy and really what is going on in the socialization of this society, that taking care of a pet is more efficient than raising a child. And that maybe to the extreme, the companionship would be more better because they don't have to worry about raising a dog or raising a cat for the rest of their life, or any other pets for that matter. They have a timeline. They have a whole entire less life expectancy than humans. So that would be my theory on the extreme why people decide to get pets instead of having children. But I'm going to show you a little bit more here. Pet ownership statistics. Right here, it tells you about what's going on. And already it says in the first paragraph, a 20% increase since 1988. Check this out, people. Shout out to spots.com and Celia Miller. Report highlights. 2 out of every 3 American homes includes a pet, and 393.3 million pets live in the United States. Pet ownership has increased 20% since 1988. Outpacing that growth is pet owner spending, especially in matters of pet health. Dogs, cats, and fish are the most popular pets. And I bet you that it's mainly dogs that's usually the most sought after pets to get. Where was I? Outpacing that growth is pet owner spending, especially in matters of pet health. Dogs, cats, and fish are the most popular pets, though preferences for breeds and types of animals vary across regions. 85 million or 67% of American homes include a pet. 95% of American pet owners consider their pets to be family members. Yes, that's true. Freshwater aquarium fish are the most popular pet, with 139.3 million of them nationwide. Generation X and millennials make up more than 2/3 of all pet owners in the United States. So my theory is correct. My hypothesis is correct. Americans spend $1 billion each year on pet insurance. Now check this out. It says the total right here is 84.9 million in total. But guess what's the first category for household keeping pets? Dogs is the first category, which I figured. 63.4 million. Cats come second, 42.7 million. Freshwater fish, 11.5 million. Birds, 5.7 million. Oh, but you can't get Bronzebird though. Reptiles, 4.5 million. Horses, 1.6 million. Saltwater fish, 1.6 million. Other, 5.4 million. So let's read this a little bit on so we can get an analysis of what's going on. Pet ownership statistics. Pet ownerships in the United States has risen steadily in recent decades, with a higher percentage of households owning pets today compared to 40 years ago. 84.9 million or 67% of American households own at least one kind of pet. 63.4 million or 53% of American households own dogs. Most dog owning households have one dog. 42.7 million or 35.7% of household own cats. Cat owning households keep an average of 2 cats each. 11.5 million or 9.6% of households own freshwater fish. Freshwater fish owners keeps an average of 12 fish. Swedish fish. 5.7 million or 4.8% keeps birds. Between 3 and 4 birds live in the average bird-owning household. Hey, I'm solo. 4.5 million or 3.8% have reptiles. Each reptile-owning household keeps an average of 2 reptiles. 1.6 million or 1.3% keep horses. Horse owners keep between 4 and 5 horses per household. 1.6 million or 1.3% keep saltwater fish. Households with saltwater fish keep between 11 and 12 fish on average. 5.4 million or 4.5% have another type of small animal as a pet. These households keep between 2 and 3 pets. And check out right now what it says for age group, because I usually think it's millennials and Gen Z. Well, what they're saying, they'll put millennials and Gen Z in the same category. But look at this chart right here. So the elderly that's above 71 years old is only 6%. Baby boomers is 27%. Gen X is 32%. But look at the whopping percentage increase is millennials. So from my bracket to Gen Z, we would be the most generation that owns pets. Now check this out. Pet ownership appears to be most popular among younger adults. The elders of Generation Z are just now reaching adulthood with comparatively little data available regarding Generation Z and pet ownership. Statistical meaning is doubtful. 73% of millennials born between 1981 and 1994 owns pets. 89% of home-owning millennials also own pets. 35% of all pet owners are millennials. 32% of pet owners are Generation X, born between 1965 and 1981. 27% of pet owners are baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964. Just 6% of pet owners are in the silent generation. Well, they're on their way out, but it's no offense, but look what it says right here. Now, at the highest peak, it was 68% in 2013, but again in 2017, only reached down 1% by 2020. But what would the stats be now since it's 2021? Would it lower to 65% or 64%? Well, we're just going to show you a little bit right here. This is just going to give you more, statistics on states. It's going to give maybe more in this. But I wanted to show you guys a little something different this episode. I wanted to show you from the robotic sense that they also got something going on with this. Check this out. Fair use.
What about a therapy robot dog? CBS 2's Jeff Nguyen shows us how a robo-dog named Jenny is helping to improve one man's life.
How does she feel? Smooth and really soft?
For Autumn Kerr, getting her dad Dennis to smile sometimes requires an artificial touch.
For me, it looks and sounds like a dog.
Kerr's talking about...
And look how real that thing is. The fur, the coat, it's just looks too similar to a real dog.
Jenny, a prototype robot therapy.
And literally, dog is a man's best friend.
Dog designed to help patients who are unable to care for a real pet. Dennis has Parkinson's disease and has difficulty moving and speaking.
She's calming. You could just pet her. She's not active and all over the place. Sometimes with pets, they can get a little rambunctious.
She is covered with touch sensors. She can feel how and where she's being touched.
Tom Stevens created his company Tombot after his mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and her beloved dog had to be taken away.
My mom was devastated. So I started looking at substitutes for live animal companions.
USC's Dr. Maima Tarek says therapy pets may help patients cope with loneliness, anxiety, and stress.
They're now increasing numbers of
Boom. Because you already have emotional dogs, right? You already have emotional dogs, people who use pets, or I don't even want to say use, that have pets for emotional value. Or the fact of the matter, they just need a companionship. Now, this is a thing. When it comes to robots, though, we have an understanding that they're moving on with the whole entire thing with robots. There is, right? And in fact, the matter, from the other episodes that I did, it's all about companionship and trying to feel close to something, emotionally attached to something. Now, a product like this, yes, they're going to use it for the most vulnerable generation or vulnerable people, vulnerable sector of people who may suffer from something or need the care or TLC at the moment, right? So this is the thing. It's going to start off with this, but what will it become 10 to 15 years after that? Because now will people opt out for having actual pets, or will they still get pets or try to incorporate a fake pet such as this one with a real pet, like a real dog with that, or with a real dog with that dog you just seen that the guy was just looking at?
studies that show that people really thrive and feel better when they have some amount of physical contact in their lives.
And there's some evidence robotic companions can do the same. Jenny barks and wags her tail just like a real dog. She also responds to touch, creating a connection for people like Dennis.
Something like this would help him engage his mind in something else, calm his body. So I think it's a wonderful tool. Can you help pet Jenny with me?
The robots go on the market next year for about $450.
Jeff Nguyen, CBS 2 News.
Lucky they did it for $450 because pets out here be costing like $1,000. Check this out, people. Now, this is what I really wanted to show you today. I wanted to show you this. This is a robotic dog. Now, this is from Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics have been working on a lot of technologies with robots, and we see it a lot more times than not, that they work with the actual humanoid robots, and they was working on pets as well. But of course, since dog seems to be the bigger demographic of pets that's usually owned, they go with dogs first. Dog is a man's best friend. But I make this episode to give an analysis of how complicated will it become that when they have something such as this as a robotic dog, will it be used against us or for us? Because like I told y'all in previous episodes, a lot of the technology that's being developed today is for the sole purpose of trying to get as close to humans as possible. So watch this, and I'll give my commentary as it plays. Fair use. Peep.
What's up? MKBHD here. This is Spot, the Boston Dynamics robot dog. So you may recognize the name Boston Dynamics from these kind of terrifying videos from a few years ago. You might have seen these, or maybe these part scary, part maybe a little sad videos.
And look how weird that thing looks. You see that? Look how weird that thing looks. What, like, it's like they took human legs and put it on some like discombobulated car structure, put it together, and then they made a random dog out of it. And yes, I get it. It's prototypes, right? It's prototypes that they're using in order to develop a better product. But at the same time, I cannot, Boston Dynamics, man.
Or even this recent video of it being spotted out in public that I tweeted with some feelings about it in 2020. But I think a lot of people, when talking about it, saw that one Black Mirror episode, which may have been loosely inspired, maybe heavily inspired by the Boston Dynamics projects. But this is dope tech, and I actually got to spend some time up in Boston with the team that actually works on this. And so here, I'm going to show you everything I learned about what Spot actually is and what it can actually do right now in 2020.
What is Spot? Spot is a goddamn drone, a ground drone.
Okay, so what is Spot? So Spot is a quadruped robot that's basically a computer, battery, and sensors all together on top of some motors and metal and joints in the shape of legs. Does that make sense? Spot is mostly metal, so weighs around 60 pounds, pretty hefty, and it's
I wonder if Spot shoots like these infrared like little beams at people if it gets really upset, because it can't bark. Because if it imitates a bark, that's just weird. You understand? Like it's gonna be an Andronian bark.
the most refined version yet of this remote controlled dog concept. So you can see there's 5 sets of cameras all
You
around.
see what the fuck that shit just did? It was supposed to give you the puppy dog eyes. You seen that, right? Like how puppies and dogs always do that little face at you when you say something to them, when they become aware. This is the same thing that this wannabe dog did.
There's 2 main sets in the front. We'll call that the face. And then there is a matching set on each side and a set of cameras at the butt. So each one of these cameras sees in stereo vision, and along with gyroscopes and sensors inside, all of this is feeding information to the computer at all times.
And so when you charge it, is that another way of it taking a shit? Or is that eating?
About how to control the motors to keep Spot balanced. So take that, then add some shoulder harnesses to pick it up, some rubber nubs for feet, and some appropriate ventilation for the computer inside, and you got yourself a robot dog. And of course, one that looks a lot more slim and friendly than previous iterations of the robot dog. Maybe the best example of that is the battery, actually. So Spot has a little interchangeable battery in the belly area. It's an 11,500 milliamp hour battery pack, and that powers Spot for around 90 minutes on a charge. But that, of course, depends on the payload weight and how much you're actually using it. Matter of fact, Spot is actually using energy here, actively balancing, even when it's just standing still. So your mileage may vary. So Spot's controller is essentially an Android tablet with some buttons and joysticks. And so it's running the Spot Android app that Boston Dynamics coded, so it can talk directly to Spot or even via a remote connection from many miles away. And honestly, the most impressive part of the controls was how easy it was. Like I got maybe a 90-second demo with the controller, and that for me was enough to know maybe 90% of the things that Spot can do right off the bat. Maybe it's because I loved RC cars. I was always into this type of thing, but it was super simple. So the left joystick moves the robot forward and backward and side to side, and the right joystick is just for rotation, clockwise or counterclockwise. So you basically combine these 2 joysticks and you can direct Spot. This gate is a lot more approachable and stable and predictable.
I just wanted to play a quick video of that just to give y'all an overview of the possible technologies that they're coming out with more. You make your assessment off of what you believe, but I wanted to combine that into this series of the hypothesis in order to give you a view that the changing world of this society, what is it going to be now? Less births? Does that mean that more people are just going to have pets as children? And even with the complications of having a pet, such as dealing with pet insurance and all these other fixtures of what it's like having a pet, does it become more complex and complicated to the point that people will start investing on robotic dogs as a form of companionship instead of actual pets? Now, anything that's living or breathing, that is, will it be replaced with technology in order to make up for the companionship and to have a relationship or whatever that is? What will be the answer? You tell me. You find out. You shall find out in the years to become. Peace.